What's up, guys? Today I've got a doozy of a case study for you. This is a deal that is probably my most expensive deal to date, and I'm going to walk you through it. So stay tuned. Let me share my screen with you, show you a picture of the house, and give you the story on this deal. So this was a property, a very nice property. This was $1 million home. In a place called Park City, Utah. You may have heard of it. A very high-end ski town, lots of, very well known for the Sundance Film Festival. A lot of expensive homes in Park City. Long story short, this home went into foreclosure. And at the auction, a surplus or overage was generated in the amount of $286,000 and some change. Okay. So quite the overage, right? Very large overage. And it's kind of I'm going to show you guys, if I can here. I want to show you guys some more pictures of this property just because it's kind of wild. So, but I'll give you the background of this. So property was foreclosed on, and there was a ton of, I believe there was 3 different mortgages. So 2, if you don't count the one that got foreclosed on. There was a judgment lien and several other small liens on this property. Okay. So it was quite, there was a mess of issues with this property. During my due diligence phase, where I was looking at the chain of title, looking at these liens, looking at these mortgages, I discovered that a third mortgage, it just did not look right. It looked, there were documents with missing notarized signatures. Some signatures weren't even signed. And so I was like, maybe there's something here. I took it to my attorney. I was like, hey, could you look at this real quick? Let me know what you think. So he did. And he's like, honestly, I think we could challenge this. I think we could challenge these people's claim, and we may have a good shot at this. So I was like, okay, if you think there's that big of an issue and that we can win, let's go ahead and go for it. So we filed our claim on behalf of the homeowner. A judgment lien holder filed a claim. The third mortgage filed a claim. And then these smaller liens, like an HOA association and like a water lien, very small amounts, they filed. We all went to court, and nobody challenged the smaller liens like the HOA and the water. Those guys got paid out immediately. So then there was three people left. There was us representing the homeowner. There was a judgment lien holder who had sued our client and had won a judgment, and then filed that judgment against the house. And then there was a third mortgage, which we were challenging. The third mortgage, if they had won, would have claimed the entire amount, and us and the other party would have lost everything. Okay. Or wouldn't have got anything. So here's what happened with this deal. The first time we went to court, the judge actually ruled in our favor and in the judgment party's favor. So after the judgment lien holder got paid, we were going to take home like about 150 something thousand in overage, because the judgment lien holder was owed over 100, and so it was still a great payday. And I had this negotiated at a 70-30 split. Okay. So we actually won in court the first time. I'm just going to kind of go through these pictures while I explain the story. So we won in court. They were about to pay out the funds. And then the party that lost, the third mortgage, they filed what's called an appeal. So they filed an appeal to the judge's decision, basically saying that they didn't think the judge made the right call, that they wanted to appeal it. And so this was the first time this has ever happened to me in a case. We had to take our case to what is called the State Court of Appeals. And a whole bunch of other, what's called discovery had to happen, and dispositions, and just a lot of stuff legally. in preparation for that hearing at the State Court of Appeals. So we go to the State Court of Appeals and present our case, and they don't rule in anybody's favor. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. They basically looked at this and said, we can't make a decision either way because we don't have enough information, despite what you're bringing us. So we are going to send this back to the district court, and you have to go back and have a third hearing with the district court to decide who is entitled to the funds. So, and this is like over the span. So we started this case, guys, in the summer of 2018, June of 2018. So then we go back to the district court and we're waiting for our third hearing, and nothing is moving forward. Nothing's happening. They haven't even scheduled it yet. And my attorney gets a call from the third mortgage, and they want to see if we're willing to settle. And they offered us $40,000 for us and the other party to settle. So we would have had to split $40,000 between us and the judgment lien holder. I said no. I wasn't willing to do that. So we let it sit. Several months go by. And then I find out, like, over the course of this 3 years, I'm into it about $18,000 in legal fees. That's how much I had paid over the course of time. So I go back to my attorney. I say, hey, why don't you go back to them and see if they will give us, just us, $40,000. So he did. They came back and they said, we'll give you 30. And I told my attorney, let's take it. Let's get this thing over with. So long story short, guys, we settled this finally for $30,000 in July of last year, 2021. So 3 years, $20,000 in legal fees is the exact number was $20,183.50. That is how much I had paid over the span of 3 years in legal fees in this case. And so what ended up happening is we got that 30,000, we pulled out of the deal. This case is still ongoing. As far as I know, the judgment lien holder and the third mortgage are still battling, as far as I know, which is insane to me. So what ended up happening, we settled for 30,000. Luckily on this case in my contract, I did stipulate that I wanted to be reimbursed for my legal fees, which usually I don't do that. Usually I just cover all the legal fees. But because this was more complicated, I did want to be reimbursed, and I'm very glad I did that. Otherwise, I probably would have lost on this case. No, I would have, for sure. I would have gone in the negative. So be aware of that, guys. When you're negotiating your cases, that's one reason why it's important to research the title and research the debt so that you know what you're going into. And if it is potentially, now there's no way I could have foresaw that it would take 3 years, but I knew that it could get sticky. And so I put that clause in my contract saying I wanted to be reimbursed for my fees. My client was fine with that. And so I was reimbursed all my legal fees, which after that left us $9,816.50 to split between me and my client at a 70-30, 70% to him, 30% to me. So that left me with a grand total profit of $2,944.95. So, you know, I didn't lose money, but, you know, to walk away with $2,900, basically I got paid a little less than $1,000 a year to work this case. So quite the doozy, one of the most expensive cases I've ever done. Couple takeaways, guys, from this is avoid court, avoid litigation at all costs. Meaning, when I say litigation, I mean conflict in court, where you're battling with someone else. It's totally fine to go to court because sometimes you have to, sometimes you have competing claims. But if someone has a valid claim, then and you don't see any reason to fight it, then what you would do is you would settle, or you would enter into what's called a stipulation, and you just agree, hey, this person gets whatever's owed to them, whatever's left over comes to us. That would be a stipulation, or an agreement, basically. And that way you avoid the ongoing expenses of fighting legal battles in court. Okay. Another takeaway, do your due diligence so you know what you're going into. And also, when you're doing your due diligence, your debt research, title research, you can discover other opportunities that may exist. As far as I know, nobody else reached out to my client on this case. I was the only one to do that, and that's because we discovered an opportunity. Now, again, you may say, well, it wasn't much of an opportunity. No, but I made some money and I learned a ton from this case. It was and this is the other thing my attorney told me. He's like, you're getting like a small law education from just this one case. And it's so true. I learned so much about title, chain of title, how documents are supposed to be created, the differences between deeds and promissory notes, or deeds of trust, and mortgages, lots of different things that, you wouldn't learn unless you went to law school. So I don't regret this case because I learned so much from it. But the lesson is I will try to avoid litigation at all costs, because the only parties that really benefit when you battle in court is the attorneys that are collecting the legal fees. Usually you don't win out in the end. I was fortunate just because I had in my contract to be reimbursed for my fees. Had I not had that clause, I would have lost a lot of money, obviously. And then, of course, use attorneys as well, because had I not taken this case to my attorney, we would not have discovered maybe a potential opportunity here. And I wouldn't have got the education that I did. So that's it, guys. One of my most expensive cases to date. I've never had one like this that was so complex as this one. And if I see one like this again, I probably won't pursue it, even if I think there may be an opportunity, unless it would have to be a lot of money. But again, there was a lot of money in this one too, but we got a very, very, very small portion of that. So, but my client was happy. He thought he would get nothing. He was like, go for it. Like he basically took the stance of, I've got nothing to lose because you're doing all the work. And if you're going to pay all the attorney's fees out of your pocket, by all means, have at it. So, it worked out. At least I didn't lose money, but the education was priceless for sure. And hopefully you learned a few things by watching this case study, namely, do your due diligence, title research, debt research. I teach that section 2 of the course. Use an attorney, teach you how to find those in section 5. And avoid court litigation. I think in court, a lot of people will let their egos get in the way, and they get into the mindset that I have to win this, whether it's based on principle or just based on the money or whatever it is. But remember, guys, and not just in overages or surplus funds, I would say this lesson applies to just life in general. I would avoid court litigation at all costs in anything in life. Because my lesson from this case was, again, is the only guys and gals that benefit from going to court and fighting and battling are the attorneys collecting the legal fees. that was my takeaway from this case. So avoid court, avoid litigation, have a good asset protection plan in place for your assets. Be rich, but look poor on paper. Don't own stuff in your own name. Utilize, what's available for you to protect your assets, like your home and things like that. And that's a whole nother class. If you want me to go into detail on how I protect my assets, let me know in the comments below. I can do that. Happy to do a video on that. But those are my lessons, and hopefully you took some lessons away as well. So as always, here to help you guys with overages, getting started, whether you're new or whether you're experienced. Got my program, and that's it, guys. We will see you in the next case study video. I hope you have a great day.